Before we get started, just a quick note, spoiler alert.
And we are adults, and I will try very hard not to use adult language, but this is the warning.
Here we go. Hi. No, that's not it. Hello, welcome back to Fright Bites. My name is Jennifer.
And I'm Serena. Each episode, we will feature a short story or novella. You can read along with us by finding the full reading list posted on our website, lastlibraryonTheLeft.com, or our social media at LLOTL Podcast.
And today is the last day of our Fright Bites.
We made it!
We're recording this so late at night, and I'm so surprised that we're actually getting to record it. You look so tired. I feel so
exhausted.
tired. But we made it. We made it through our first 31 days. So kudos to us. I don't know how we did it.
Sheer will.
You know what? Yeah, because halfway through, I was like, I am going to finish these books and we're going to get them.
But she didn't finish all of them, y'all. This one is special. It's a DNF.
Yep, or do not finish. But we'll get into it. So let's talk about the stuff because you need to know what I didn't finish. The book we're talking about is Your House is on Fire, Your Children All Gone. It's by Stefan Kiesbye.
Yeah, I mean, it's German, so that sounds German.
Yeah, I was like, that's what I wrote. I was like, I think that's it. Okay. It was first published in 2012 by Penguin Books. And so here we go. The summary. The village of Hemmersmoor is a place untouched by time and shrouded in superstition. There is a grand manor house whose occupants despise the villagers, the small pub whose regulars talk of revenants, the old mill no one dares to mention. This is where four young friends come of age in an atmosphere thick with fear and suspicion. Their innocent games soon bring them face to face with the village's darkest secrets in this eerily dispassionate, astonishingly assured novel, evocative of Stephen King's classic short story, Children of the Corn, and infused with the spirit of the Brothers Grimm. That explains the cover.
I think it explains the stories, though, too, because I didn't start it. Well, I did technically start it on the train after I brought it home from MIT, but I didn't actually get into it until after you had already DNF'd it. And so as I was reading it, I felt like really, oddly enough, dispassionate, just like they described. And I was like, it feels like an anthology, like Grimm Brothers. You know, I grew up on the original Grimm Brothers collection, and fun story, I got kicked out of pre-K. Well, actually, wait, I got kicked out of pre-K for fighting. I got put in the hall in kindergarten a lot for correcting the teacher about the Disney endings of fairy tales.
That's hilarious because I wasn't exposed to Brothers Grimm until way later on.
Oh no, my mom got me a book of it at a garage sale and we read those. And it wasn't until I think after I'd corrected her on Snow White, Red Riding Hood, and something else. I bet Miss Woods at that point was like, okay, we're doing Dr. Seuss, like not looking back because this child here.
Yeah, I can totally see baby Sedina doing this. Like, no, that's really not what happened.
I was like, but Miss Woods, that's not what my book says. And then she'd be like, well, what does it say, Sedina? And I'm like, well, the woodsman cut open the wolf and took it. And she was like, shh. No.
Hilarious.
Oh, shout out to Miss Woods. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was not easy.
I'm sure it wasn't because I would just be looking at you like, should I have a conversation with this parent or should I not? Because it's not like a bad thing. It's just like, how do I tell her, like, obviously these other kids don't know about it?
Yeah, just because this one small deranged child seems fine with it doesn't mean the rest of them will. But anyway, so reading this, and it felt like an anthology. It wasn't. It was a bunch of random memories that span a couple of years in this small village, but specifically from these same 5 kids. And it just felt so unrealistic. I mean, also, I think there was a part of me that was like, but also they're German. So I don't know. Like, I mean, I know that's rude. And that's why I was like, maybe I need therapy because I try really hard to work on my biases. Yeah. And I know what they are, but I think this might be the first time I've ever been confronted with an internalized bias about Germans.
Oh.
Which I didn't think I had, but maybe?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I'm going to work on it, y'all. I promise.
Yeah. That's interesting because I just kept thinking like, what in the hell? But you know what? So this, I think, was just an amalgamation of all of the psychological horror that I read in the span of 90 days, about 3 months, because I started the books early on. So I think in the span of the 90 days, reading a lot of the psychological stuff, coming to terms with some other things and then realizing, which we'll talk about later, why I prefer my specific preferences of horror all just kind of mashed together one. And I was like, I can't do this book.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Why don't we get into all of the reasons why you hated it? Because I had different reasons for hating it. That's a strong word. We probably shouldn't use hate. We're sorry.
The reasons why I had to put it down and not pick it back up.
Yeah.
So I'll just go ahead and tell you. The first thing was the front cover. So I told you, I was like, that kid is creepy.
That's my favorite part about it.
I was like, oh, so the little girl in the front cover was creepy, but I could deal with her. But then I told Cena, I was like, there is an embellishment on the cover. And that freaked me out because it said, if you tell on me, you're dead. And it took me like a couple weeks to figure out what it said because it's so faint and you got to put it up just to the right amount of light. And I was like, oh God.
Can we talk about how dumb I am? Because I have owned this book for years now and I never saw that. And then you were like, oh yeah, the embellishment on the cover. And I was like, the what now?
And I was like, wait a minute, does her cover not have that?
Definitely does.
Yeah, because I got my copy from the library. So the barcode was over the if you. And so all I saw was tell on me, you're dead. And I was just like, oh my God, that's just horrible. Like, that's so bad. But then you told me like, oh yeah, it says if you tell on me, you're dead. I was like, oh, okay, because that's what the barcode was covering up. And I was just like, it's still not great.
Yeah, it doesn't make it better.
It doesn't make it better. But that was a big thing because I just kept trying to figure out what that embellishment said. When I finally figured out, I was like, oh, fuck. So this is going to tell you how far in I got to it. I think the second chapter is told by Martin's point of view. And Martin is talking about this holiday food contest that Village has. And there was a sentence that he said where he said, our rage had subsided after they like killed a family. And I was just like, oh my gosh, the collective rage. That really terrified me. It sent me back to the Capitol riots and how scary that was to witness. And so that's where that came from. And then in the next chapter, I think it was from Christian's point of view, and Christian killed his sister so he could see hell. I was like, huh. At this point, I was like, okay, so I'm reading something that I've never read before. Should I keep going? I was like, I'll just keep going because it can't get any worse. And then like I think the next chapter wasn't too bad. It was about a mom and she was afraid her husband was cheating and she like wished the other woman dead, and the woman ended up going out and dying, and it wasn't as terrible because I think because this one had more adults involved.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but well, I guess you wouldn't because you didn't finish it, but no. By the end of the book, so that was Lindy. That was Lindy's chapter, and Lindy's chapters were always like fairly chill compared to everybody else's. Christian had the worst because Christian was a fucking psycho.
Yeah, because the next chapter I read was Christian, and this is when his sister was impregnated by their dad.
Yep.
And that was when I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna close the book.
Oh, so did you miss that he killed their father?
No, I read that and I was like, you know, I'm just good. I'm just done. So I wrote down why this was hard. It was really hard to read the child abuse, the incredibly horrible decisions that were made, the lack of adult interference, but then the fact that the adults that were in there were just so unhinged.
Yeah, they were not any better. They were some garbage human beings.
And so it's like, where is the hope? There's no hope.
There's no hope. Okay, well, just real quick, because you never finished it, so you didn't see this happen at the end. But throughout the entire time I read this, I was like, wow, this is just clearly an over-exaggerated country-ass town where people they're bred to be terrible. They're bred to be terrible because they're insular, they're self-isolated, and they're arrogant. And at the very end, the tourist is in the town, and he comes into the pub, and he's talking to his girlfriend, and he's like, look at this place. It's so garbage. This place is full of incest, and look at the way that their bone structure is. It's clear that they all like sleep with their relatives and da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, this is why I hate small towns. Yeah. Because, no offense, I guess, but my mental image of small towns is that you keep secrets when you shouldn't, and it breeds and festers this like grotesque culture. And that's what this book was to me. It was just this over-exaggerated version of that. And then the bias part of me was like, maybe it's just Germans. much is it great?
I mean, that's not great, but it does track for a lot of small towns because I can tell you, like, just driving through small towns, sometimes you could tell that they don't want strangers. They don't care what color you are. They don't want you coming into their small town, even if it's just to pump some gas. So it tracks for some small towns, just very scary. So I was just like, I'm not picking this book back up. I don't know that I will ever pick it back up.
Yeah.
You know, maybe one day in the future I might like be brave and like, let me pick it back up, but I don't think so.
No. It won't be worth your time. I can tell you right now, it won't be worth your time.
I mean, that's good to know. It's good to know that I didn't finish one that wasn't like a great book.
No.
You know, like Neil Gaiman's Ocean at the End of the, like, you know what I mean? I'm glad that I didn't miss out on a great book.
Yeah, you would have been disappointed if you hadn't finished Gaiman's book. I will put this into perspective for you. I would read X's for Eyes over and over in order to avoid this.
Oh my God. That says a lot. A whole hell of a lot, considering our mutual distaste of X's for I. Well, for a lot of X's for my eyes, not all of it, but yeah. Oh, that's too funny. So this actually brought up a bigger conversation. And so like, I don't want to like offend our friend because I know it wasn't meant in a bad way, but it did trigger me. And I was like, I'm triggered and I had to think about it. We had a review from a friend who I appreciate the review, who called me naive. And she was also aware that she wasn't using the right term. And I often say that I'm sheltered. And I think I haven't done a good job sharing with y'all because I choose not to talk about things. And so I think that's why I come off as naive. So we're going to get into a little bit of it today because it explains why I mean, because I was exposed to like campy slasher horror, but that's the type of horror that I prefer because it has comedy in it. And so we'll get into this. I might cry. I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
So, but I did want to thank our friend because I think if I didn't finish the book and then I didn't read their review, I don't know that I would have even said anything. So I feel like I needed to clear the air a little bit. So I have a list here of trauma. So one of the things that I realized through the 31 days is that there's a lot of psychological trauma that is generational in my family, and it hasn't yet finished. It hasn't been healed. So just for instance, my name is Jennifer. My daughter's name is Aurora. My mom has an Indian name. She gave me an English name because she was bullied when she moved to Canada. So she didn't want us to have to worry about that. And for me, I could have easily given my daughter an Indian first name, but I chickened out at the last moment and I gave her an American name because I was like, I don't want her to have to deal with that either. And when I was choosing her last name, I could have easily given her my last name, which is an Indian last name, but I chose to give her my ex's because I think his is German. But I was like, oh, white people can say it. So like, it's not going to be an issue because that was an issue for me growing up. You know, I always got called Howie Mandel because it sounds like my last name. And so that was a thing. And then like, I'm going to cry. It's just crazy. Being Indian, even though I wasn't aware of it, I was made fun of in school because people thought I was Native American. That still hasn't finished, right? Because like people still ask you like, oh, are you the red dot or the feather type of Indian, right? Like that still kind of happens. There's a lot of, oh, what are you? As opposed to where are you from? And so there's so much psychological stuff just for the color of my skin that I deal with all the time. And like my daughter, this one I discovered while we were reading, and I was like really traumatized. I think I chose to have a baby with a white guy so she would come out light complected. So that life would be easier for her because even though growing up wasn't as bad as a lot of Black people have it, after 9/11, I couldn't afford college. I was putting myself through loans to go through college, but I was sexually assaulted just like going to my car from school.
Holy shit.
At the library, people didn't want me to help them, and like I didn't do anything. You know, I just so happened to look like
And you
someone
were
that,
so young.
yeah, I was 9/11 happened, I was 18, so I was, you know, just fresh into school, and I witnessed a friend. I was only going to a local community college and that happened. I had friends who were run off the road. I had a friend who was stuffed into the trunk of a car and that's how he died. We didn't do anything. Like we were just people, and like you could tell I'm the most non-Indian person that you'll ever meet. You know what I mean? I'm so assimilated into American culture because my mom ingrained it to us to forget about our own culture and assimilate. And so we've done a great job of it because I can't even teach my daughter the full essence of my religion because I don't understand the full essence. I have to learn with her. And so psychologically, that trauma is there and hasn't been healed. I'm trying to heal it, but it hasn't ended because just 6 years ago, I was afraid that I was going to have to start carrying my citizenship paperwork in my glove box in my car. And then I was worried that I would get deported to Canada of all places, because that's where I was born, and that my daughter would be without her mom and she was already without her dad. And I was just freaking out. I freaked out, and like, it's just psychological trauma is just, it hasn't ended for me. And so when I go to like the campy slasher stuff, it's a way for me to purge those negative feelings. And gosh, I'm crying so much. I'm so sorry.
No, it's good. I know this is going to sound terrible, but I believe this is really healthy for
Yeah.
you. Maybe not in this medium.
Right. Like, I'm thinking, like, how are people going to hear this? I'm not talking properly.
I think that it's still good for you to have come to these. You know, it's when it comes to healing intergenerational trauma, there is no wrong way to discover that wound.
Right.
You know?
And so this has brought a lot of it to light because I think while the campy stuff is really great for like purging those negative feelings, because when killer is killed, I can like, oh gosh, that's what I would love to do to some of these people, but I can't because I'm a good person. And so I can expel those feelings through that type of horror. But also it has comedy because like, how scary is Freddy really? He makes jokes, you know, he puts his head on a pizza, like he's really not scary. So it's just a way for me to expel some of those. And this helped me realize a lot of things that I didn't realize that I unconsciously did, because like, had I read these books way back when and like really got into psychological stuff, would Aurora be half white or would she not? You know, would that even be her name? I don't know. And this is all with, and I tell people I'm very sheltered. I wasn't allowed to do sleepovers and stuff. I wasn't allowed to do a lot of after school stuff until high school. And yet all this stuff still happened, you know?
I wonder if a part of your, because like earlier I could feel through even just this video chat, the tear in your heart over the things that happened. And it makes me wonder if some of that pain is because of some type of, not guilt necessarily, but your mother did so much to force assimilate her children, and yet it still wasn't enough for white people.
Right. It still wasn't enough. I walk a fine line with trying to get Aurora to know her culture, but also do the same as me, because I don't ever want her to experience anything like I've experienced. I never want her to do that. I will kill for her. I'd rather go to jail to prevent any of that happening to her. But I know that I can't protect her forever. And I don't know, like, what is she going to do with her? Well, she says she doesn't want to have kids, so she may not have to worry about passing on culture or anything, but she's only 6, so that could change. Because that stuff is not done yet. And in the... Gosh, I love the state of Texas. I'm one of those people that buys Texas shaped chips. I have so much Texas state shit. But our state is going so backwards right now. And it's one of the greatest states, I feel. And I'm so afraid for my daughter and myself that I want to get the hell out of here. And I tell you that all the time. Even now, like, I keep thinking, what is next? And like, I like the way you approach psychological, because it's something to prepare for. I don't know that I could ever be prepared for all the things that have happened in the past and for uncovering some of the things. I'm glad I uncovered it now, as I have leapt into the last year of my 30s. I'm glad that it happened now, because I feel like I can better handle it. Whereas if I was younger, after all that stuff happened, I handled it really badly, because you know, you are allowed to drink for the first time and you're allowed the freedoms to go out for the first time. And I think I would have handled it even worse than I handled liquor. Let's just be honest. I was not responsible. We all go through that stage, you know? So I'm appreciative that I'm able to discover it now, but this book triggered a lot of that, because there was so much stuff happening when the kids were young, and I was just brought back to school time and all this trauma, and then hearing my mom with her trauma from school, and it was a lot. So that's why I didn't finish it.
And that's fair, because if that's as far as you got, Lindy, a lot of her stuff is pretty mellow. I think the worst thing that happens to Lindy is her father beats the shit out of her and like really messes up her face. And then he blamed her for him being fired. And then his employer hired him back 2 weeks later. And then after he got hired, he was like, I'm so sorry I did that to you. If I could take it back, I would. And I was like, you already bashed your face in.
Yeah.
Okay. But she's the one in the prologue who pissed on Anke's grave. And I got to tell you, because at first I was like, damn, bitch, what did she do to you?
Right?
You got to piss on her grave. And then I read the whole book and I was like, you let her get off easy.
Well, that's funny because I was like, well, that's interesting. Because the way she did it, I was like, I don't know how I would react to that because no one reacted. And I was like, I think I would be like the group and I wouldn't react. And I'd just kind of walk away like, okay, she's doing her thing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, I hated a lot of these kids. I think Lindy was about the only one I really liked. Maybe Martin. But that was in comparison to Christian, who not only killed his little sister so he could get a glimpse of hell because a circus came into town and claimed had a hall of horrors that would show you hell. And then he was like, I would like to see hell. So he killed his sister. It was like, well, now you definitely, if you believe in hell, you're going.
Yeah. The fact that he killed his sister when even like the circus guy was like, you didn't have to kill her.
Yeah.
This was the better way to kill her. And I'm like, oh my God. The kid set me off. I was like, you are crazy, child.
Yeah. Although when he killed his father for impregnating his sister, I was like, okay, that I at least understand a bit more.
Yeah.
But then his mom and his sister beat the shit out of him for doing it. And I was like,
I was so like, wait, I don't understand. But you know what? There are family members in my family who are not safe, and I can't name names because revenge is real. And I kept thinking about them in specific, and I was like, I get why poor Christian is the way he is because of his household. He grew up in a terrible household.
Yeah. The other kid I really didn't like was Alex. So all the boys were out ice fishing, and then during an argument or something, one of them dropped their hatchet under the ice. And they were like, oh, well, that hatchet's gone forever. They were like, I dare you to go get it. And then they were like, nah, man, it's like I'll freeze. And if I don't freeze, I won't find the hole to come back up and I'll drown. And one of the kids, Broden, was like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then they were like, you'll do it? He was like, yeah, man, for 50. And they were like, all right, cool. So he went down and they were like, oh man, he's dead. He's dead. What are we going to tell everybody? Why did we let him go?
Right.
Surfaced, and they were like, you did it, you resurfaced. And he was like, I thought I wasn't gonna make it. And then Alex was like, okay, but do it again. And I was like, no, oh god. And then of course it didn't resurface the second time. And then everybody ratted out Alex and said it was his plan, which it kind of was. So Alex went to juvenile correctional facility and he was there for 3 years, and he came back and he was still a dickbag.
Oh my god.
What? Ugh, he did some terrible okay, but anyway, don't rate it. It didn't change anything for me. It just showed me that people can be cruel. People who are isolated can be cruel, and children without checks and balances from proper caregivers and authority figures can be cruel.
Oh my gosh. I always tell Sadina about my neighborhood. Like my neighborhood, they're full of SHIT. I've cursed enough in these 31 days. And Jerry, I know that tickles you, but I gotta stop. So there was a point in our neighborhood where my brother-in-law's dog died, his mom died, his grandfather died. Everyone was sick in the house, and our lawn was unkept for about a month. And it was just because like the lawn guys weren't coming. And rather than, okay, I'm from the hood, and in the hood, when something is wrong with your house,
you check.
Your neighbors come, right? Are you okay? How are you doing? Can I help you? Nah, they went on Facebook and they were like, how do we report that house? And oh my gosh, it looks so bad. And like, don't they have any respect for the neighborhood? So I don't care about these people in this neighborhood. They can all go to hell because, they have this false sense of community, but really they don't have no sense of community in this neighborhood. I came to this neighborhood to give my daughter a better chance at a better education than I had. And this is the crap that I got to deal with these people. And it's like, y'all ain't shit. And so I got so much of that mentality reading about these kids too. That sense since our rage had subsided, that lives with me.
Wow. In that very first story, when it ended, I was like, oh, that's where we're going. I feel like that first story set up everything for the entire book. It showed how ignorant and how mob mentality the town was.
Yeah.
It showed how superstitious they were.
Oh my God, yes.
Girl, it showed how distrustful of outsiders. Girl, it just, all of it got me.
It was so hard to read, but when I talk to you about these, I feel so so much more like at ease with them. I'm like, it's not as bad now. I'm like, maybe I would have enjoyed it. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna go
No.
back and read it.
No, I honestly don't think you would have enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it. Felt more like getting through. It makes me think that this is one of those parables where they're like Sodom and Gomorrah, where they're like, oh, there's this one town where all the evil people live, or all the terrible things that people could do, this town has done. That's what this makes me think of, is that it was just like a parable. And I hated everyone in that town. I thought they were all terrible human beings. They were all garbage. I'm a little mad that it sounds like maybe Alex, who was a shitbag, is going to help revive the town. And I was like, you don't deserve that honor.
Right.
Anyway. And then I was like, but maybe that's just because they're German.
I really like how this resurfaced a bias you didn't know you had. Like, we talked about the bias about the novellas and how, like, we didn't realize we had that bias against them. I'm like, oh my God, why you gotta make us discover things about ourselves, Sadina? Like, why?
That's what I live for.
You know what? When all is said and done and all the tears have been cried out, I feel like I have come out of this 31 days so much wiser, stronger, and definitely well read.
That makes me really happy. I'm glad you went on this journey with me.
I am happy to have gone on the journey, especially after I sat you down in a coffee shop and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this. I'm glad that I was able to do it. It was fun. And I look forward to next 31 days, which will not be books.
Yeah, no, we learned our lesson.
Right. Yeah. I guess with that, we end, huh?
Yeah. Thanks for going on this ride with us, guys. I hope you'll enjoy it. We will lighten things up in the coming episodes, and we are taking a holiday break.
Yes. Happy Halloween.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
If you liked listening to us ramble on about horror, subscribe to our podcast and tell your friends. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at LLOTL Podcast.
Check out our website by going to lastlibraryontheleft.com. Be sure to visit our About Us page to discover our 2 truths and a lie. Or, if you'd like to send us an email, you can reach us at somethingwicked@lastlibraryontheleft.com.